out. So we can keep track of time. Oh, great, thanks. Hi, I'm Mitch, an alcoholic. And thanks, Amy, for that introduction. I thought about how I was going to share, and when I've asked to share in the past, I normally like make an outline and like I overthink it, and then I lay it out, and then I rush through things. So I'm going to just count on the outline for helping me think about what I was going to share about my experience Strength and Hope, and hopefully not just read from a note. Yeah, I think about how I drank, and I have always drank to get drunk. Simple as that. I like never wanted to drink like a normal person. So whenever I think about, introductions and the steps to the background or something like that, and it's like we learned that we can't drink like normal people. I'm like, yeah, we can't, because I never wanted to. The first time I drank was, as embarrassing as so many successive times. My mom was hanging out with her sisters and mom, and we're going to the casino. And when they left, I drank some of the vodka they left out. And it didn't have an effect in like the 2 minutes that I waited. So like I drank even more and even more. And then I got sick and went to sleep. And, I think most stories about drinking, even some of the better ones, but a lot of the bad ones, which are the majority, end up with, and then I got sick and went to sleep. In high school, I didn't drink a lot. There was a period where, I smoked a lot of weed, and when my parents told me to stop doing that, I really struggled to do that. Just like with my later relationship with alcohol, I was always just thinking about how I can get high. And in those few instances in which, my friends out in wherever we're trying to get messed up, it was always I drank as quickly as possible, and then I got really drunk, and then I got sick and I went to sleep. Mm-hmm. And when I went to college, things got worse. I had greater access to alcohol. I experienced my first blackout. I think it was after, I know it was after a football game, but I think it was after Apple Cup. I got sick, then I forgot where I was, and then I woke up. And I struggled to maintain emotions with people that were close to me, all the while drinking more and more as a salve. And I finally got my own place, which was like a brief respite for a lot of the struggles in my personal life. But I just drank more in isolation, and things became more and more unmanageable. One of the things that I have always thought of is like, how can I maintain certain elements of my status to prove to myself and others that like I have it all figured out? I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to that. Like when you're drinking, there's plenty of evidence when you look at the mirror or the night before, and you think like, yeah, this is not going to last. But I always told myself, if I had an education and I had a job and I had the job that I wanted, everything would be fine. Everything else would fall into place. So even after like I broke my jaw one morning when I was biking hungover, still drunk, I still, was able to land the career of my dreams at 20 years old, teaching 7th grade English. They said, we're going to pay you $40,000. And I was like, if I can just make this for the rest of my life, we should be fine. And honestly, when I was just starting out in that job, because I was still young enough to think that things were still normal, it was probably some of like the heaviest drinking I ever did. It was go to work hungover, barely holding on, but I didn't drink in the morning, so everything was fine. And then I would get off work. I would probably have a drink. I'd probably go to sleep, and then I would wake up and just drink into the night, and then wake up and do it all over again. All the while still having examples, especially on the weekends, where I got so drunk that I never wanted to drink again and then did. My relationship with my girlfriend and now wife became under more and more strain. Whenever there was the possibility of going out or going on a date, or what are we going to do Friday night, what are we going to do Saturday night, it had to involve drinking and drinking in excess. Um, and yeah, finally, I got to the point 5 years later of working at that job where I had to come to the terms with the fact that I had no control and I needed help. The last time I drank was across the street from my work. There was a bar across the street from the school. It's a Catholic school, so it kind of makes sense. And I started drinking at 3. I was really, really drunk by 7. There were it ended up where I was sitting, with my friend who I went with, but then also members of the school community that were also there, just making an ass out of myself. And then I got in a cab, got sick, got kicked out, got in another cab, was begging for them to take me home, and I arrived on my own doorstep, with my wife asking what the hell happened, and I was just breaking down and saying I can't do this anymore. And thankfully, I knew that AA existed, and I knew that it existed for, I guess, when I say people like me, obviously people who can't control themselves, but I knew it was a real thing that real people could go to, because I knew that my uncle is a member of this community. So I found a meeting down the street from my house. I told my wife I was going to go hit some golf balls, because it was I'm not going to AA yet. I'm just going to become a really good golfer that doesn't drink. But in the end, I took the right turn. I went to the church, and I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and there I found people that I think I'd been looking for that entire time. Not just people who had a problem and were willing to say that they needed help, the help of others, but also people who were honest about how they felt, how it felt to be alone, how it felt to not be in control, how it felt to think that you were doing the right thing all the time, only to end up, experiencing the same kind of folly and thus insanity. And though it took, I think, 3 weeks for me to finally introduce myself and share with the group that I was an alcoholic, even from that first meeting, I knew that this was going to be something that could help me if I needed it. And thankfully, I've stuck with it since then. That first meeting, 2 people that I've gotten really close with now, who at the time were only year or a few months more sober than I was. They, kind of really addressed me and said, why are you here? And I found that to be extremely valuable, because I couldn't just say, bashfully, I don't know if I want to check it out. But I really had to say, yeah, last week this is what happened, and I don't know what to do. And they said, well, you came to the right place, and this has worked for us. This could be an answer for you if you're ready to do it, and you should get a sponsor. So when Amy was talking about, how I don't think that I'm as active as she has led you to believe, but when I think of the most important things for me, it's being someone like those 2 guys that were to me, creating a space when it's it can't get worse if you, it can't get worse, but it can't get worse if you at least try doing this. I promise, I can promise people that AA is not going to make their drinking worse. And then, I can say that you're still going to have autonomy over what you do, and you're going to have to do the work. And then finally, that with a sponsor, things in my life have gotten a whole lot better. I was lucky enough to have a sponsor that did not make me dwell on everything very exhaustively. That's something that I think was really valuable to me. because I can, think and overthink things so many times. I just to think about when we were going through the book the first time. Well, when I was first exposed to the book, it was when I was drinking, and I thought maybe this AA thing will work. So I downloaded the big book on my Kindle, and I was reading the portion that's talking about, guys hiring cabbies for weeks and zipping around and all this stuff. And I was like, that's not me. So this should be fine. But the second time that I really looked at it with a sponsor, a lot of it was like not necessarily like, hey, have you ever, chartered a plane and not remembered it? It was more like, do you think you can control yourself? Do you think you have a problem? Do you believe in God? And we didn't argue. It was just kind of like yes or no. And he said, okay, let's keep going. The same thing was the case with, my fourth step. Same thing was with my amends. It was just try to, leap into action. And that's what I try to keep on doing. That's why I advise for other people too. Sometimes I think it can be kind of a pitfall because I can be kind of hands off. I say like, hey, this is yours if you want it. I'm always here. Let's do this as a plan. But some people need something else. Now my life is really great. I've been sober for 6 years and change. I still am a teacher. I never lost that job, so there is a teacher shortage. And now I teach English at high school, and I think I do it a lot better than when I was hungover all the time. I continue to find fulfillment in, finding the good part of other people and trying to help them harness that. And then with alcoholics, it's always the best. My life is always the best when I'm doing the kind of stuff that I did when I was really hot on AA, a year or 2 years sober. I was just walking to get dinner the other day, and there was this newcomer at the meeting that I got at my home group, and I had his number. It was in my text messages, and I hadn't talked to him since Tuesday, and I thought, well, what's it hurt to text someone? And just the kind of like not service, because I don't think of it like that. That's not why I'm texting these newcomers, but just the idea of like keeping my purpose in mind, keeping the 12th step in mind, and trying my best to lean into the community aspect of this fellowship is always what keeps me sober, obviously, but always is kind of like the litmus test, like how well my life is going, how content I feel. My marriage survived my alcoholism, which is a blessing from God. And that, as my relationships, as well as so many other things in my life, I can kind of really look squarely in the eye and not overreact, not react in a way all the time, or most of the time, not react in a way that's going to make things worse. And just kind of deal with the everyday stuff that life throws at me. I'll end just by saying, like, when I was drinking, I tried to control everything so that I could keep drinking. And now I still try to control things because that's just my disposition. You can call it my insanity. But I have the tools in the community to reach out and manage it in a different way than is just drinking, which is going to make it worse. And now, I don't necessarily try to find the first person to blame. I just try to find the most rational and practical solutions, and it can be uncomfortable. But as much as I can take emotion out of it and just kind of face my problems head on, as I did to the best of my ability, and how I do to the best of my ability with my alcoholism, can normally resolve to do things in my life unrelated to alcohol as well. So thanks for letting me share.
Thanks.